When we first meet him, Sunday was kind of a sanctimonious jerk. He tried to control everyone and everything under the banner of order in an attempt to supposedly make everyone happy. As you know, this failed spectacularly, and luckily for us, Sunday is someone who learns from his mistakes. Because of this failure, he has taken it upon himself to better understand humanity by traveling the cosmos. I mean, he still wants to build a perfect utopia and make everyone happy, but now wants to see whether true happiness does indeed exist, and what does it really take to build the dreamland he and his sister want. But would this journey really end the way he expects it? Would he see the truth of existence and the beauty behind it, or ultimately realize that the universe is a soulless, despondent place, not worth creating a utopia for? Or is there some other lesson here? Well, we're going to discuss all of that in this video, so strap yourselves in and you better hope tomorrow is Sunday because this will be a lengthy one. Before we get into that though, if you want to see more Honkai Star Rail content, do consider subscribing to the channel. Given the topic of this video, if you haven't played Penacony yet or the 2.7 story, you might want to avoid this one until you have. I'll be talking a lot about Sunday's experiences throughout the entirety of Penacony, and as such, this video will have quite a few spoilers. So just a warning for you beforehand. With that out of the way, let's talk briefly about Sunday and his past first. As a Hellovian, Sunday was practically born into the family and by extension Harmony, as their people are often devout followers of the path and its eon. While we don't have much on his past, his early childhood was innocent enough. He spent most of his time learning to weave the music of the harmony alongside his sister. During this time, being as idealistic as a child can be, both he and his sister developed a shared dream to make everyone happy. It's an innocent and hopeful enough goal, though for those who know the truth of existence was unbearably naive. Regardless, both Sunday and Robin aspired to this ideal and worked towards achieving it. As they grew up though, their paths would ultimately diverge. While Robin traveled the cosmos on her tours and saw the universe for what it truly was, Sunday was being groomed to be the head of the Oak family on Penacony. This meant that their experiences of how the world worked became fundamentally different. Penacony in the early days of its inception was a hotbed of corruption and sin. People from all over the universe would come to take advantage of the dream world in an effort to find success and fortune. This attracted would-be scammers, liars, and unfortunately, their targets as well. Those that were in Penacony not to trick others were they themselves subject of scams and lies that ultimately ruined their lives. While the rest of the universe was also subject to such debauchery, there was also hope and people of good moral standing. This was what made their views on real life different. While both experienced the darker side of reality, Robin saw and remained hopeful in the fact that there were still inherently good people. She believed that humanity should be given the chance to learn from their mistakes, while Sunday believed otherwise. He viewed them as deserving of happiness, but couldn't be trusted to fumble their way to it. So while they both still had the same dream, Sunday believed that humanity was unable to achieve the happiness they sought, and only through a guided hand was this possible. This is what led to the events of the Penacony storyline. Sunday invoking the powers of order to create a permanent dream where everyone could be happy, and he would shoulder the burden and responsibility of maintaining that dream. The Sunday we knew in Penacony was an individual who sought control and order as a means to an end. It was an idealistic goal warped by his generally unfortunate personal experiences. Now, to be honest, that's a very brief overview of the Penacony events, and there's really more that happened here. I mean, there's Robin's role as the courtmaster, the true antagonist being Gopherwood and his manipulations, Sunday doing all of this to ensure Robin isn't sacrificed, and even the involvement of other branches of the family. Since I'm mostly focusing on Sunday here, rather than the details of the Penacony story itself, don't take what I just shared as a reliable summary of Penacony story. It's mostly an outline of how Sunday and Robin's experiences diverged. Despite invoking the powers of a now seemingly dead god, Sunday's plans, as you know, ultimately failed. From that point on, Sunday's life took a sharp turn downwards, kinda like those last few hours of Sunday you have left before Monday came around. His mentor and benefactor Gopherwood ended up dead, most of the Oak family, at least the Penacony branch, was dismantled, and Sunday himself was taken into custody and branded as a fugitive. It was only through the involvement of Lady Bonajade, or Jade as you know her, that Sunday was released. When I say released, he basically escaped or was broken out of custody. The new Sunday realized that his plan was flawed, but we aren't shown when he reached this realization or epiphany. It could be that he had the time to reflect on his actions while imprisoned, but I personally think it was right after he was run over by a train. During his final fight with the Nameless, despite all his mistakes and issues, Robin was still willing to forgive his actions, as all she saw was someone who fumbled while trying to do something good. So I think that this was when Sunday truly started to think the same way. While saying his goodbyes in 2.7, he is again shown kindness instead of judgment. Despite being discovered by Welt, the senior Nameless didn't turn Sunday in. Welt understood his desire to have closure before leaving and allowed him to do so despite having to babysit him. When the Trailblazer ultimately allowed Sunday to board the Astral Express as a temporary Nameless, this lesson came full circle. I think after breaking out, Sunday was set on discovering the cosmos for himself, much like his sister did. But after seeing some kindness from the Nameless and that his journey might be his own personal trailblaze, he decided that that would be the best course of action. Don't get me wrong, he still holds on to the goal of creating a utopia, but by the end of 2.7, learns that his methods were all wrong, in that dreams mean nothing if they are shackled to the will of something else. This is why he now appears repentant and on the road to redemption for better or worse. His goals were not bad, but the lesson he learned is that the ends don't justify the means. There is no shortcut to happiness and utopia. That's basically where we are currently with Sunday's story arc. He has fallen from grace and is now embarking on a journey that may likely bring him closer to his goal. So given his largely divergent experiences that is now reflected in his overall look, where would this journey ultimately lead Sunday? Would he have the same experiences his sister had while she traveled and reached the same conclusion she did, or would he ultimately see the darker side of humanity? Would he redeem himself and become truly good, or eventually return back to his old ways? Of course, there's no real way of knowing, but I think Sunday might end up as a character that walks the middle road between two sides we've heard a lot about lately, kind of like a grey Jedi. See, with most of the lore we learned recently, we've discussed there being two clear sides among all the factions, paths, and even eons. One side wants to uphold a predefined fate, and the other who wants to be free of it. I think Sunday's journey on top of his own personal development is also pretty much a reflection of that, but seen from the viewpoint of an individual who is currently undecided. Is it better to allow people the freedom to choose their own fate, even if that means accepting that they might go down the wrong path or unable to achieve their dreams? Or is it better to decide their fate for them so that as many people as possible can be happy? I mean, which is better, to be born good or to overcome your evil nature through great effort? Sunday has seen what the latter does to people through his failed plan, and his journey now is likely to see if the former alternative is better. Through Sunday, we will likely see how an individual might rationalize the philosophical question that is at the basis of all this fighting. I think on one level, this journey represents Sunday's own journey of self-discovery, but on the other, it also represents the two sides that currently exist. Everyone is so busy choosing a side, while Sunday might likely be the individual who is actually able to judge both sides fairly, after his journey of course. This juxtaposition is even reflected in his new appearance, with light and dark colors of his attire, as well as when he warned Welt about the family. While the motto of the family is "the strong should defend the weak," Sunday mentions to Welt that despite their charitable facade, it would be unwise to make them an enemy, hinting at their ruthlessness. Ironically, Sunday might end up the actual voice of reason by the end of all of this. So generally, I think there might be three endings for Sunday's journey. First is that he realizes through his journey that each individual has to be given the freedom to choose their future. They should be given the chance to make mistakes, but at the same time, have those around them support them. He might end up taking these lessons and changing the family for the better, upholding their creed of the strong defending the weak. He sides with freedom, but at the same time combines it with his own ideals learned from the family, that while every individual has the right to choose, we must all support each other. It's a rather corny outcome, I admit, but also a rather pragmatic one when it comes to giving people their freedom and happiness. The second outcome is the opposite of the first, in which he realizes that the universe is an even worse place than he ever imagined, and humanity cannot be trusted with its own well-being. He sides with a fixed fate and reasons that the greater good is more important than if one individual manages to find their way. His logic and thought process becomes practically utilitarian. The universe is pointless and no individual can stand against the gods, so better succumb to a fixed fate and let the gods figure things out. This might mean trying to do what he failed in the past or just outright giving up on his dream. He might realize his naivete and accept that the dreams he and his sister had was just that, the dreams of children. The third and final option is, as I mentioned before, in that he walks both paths and understands the universe isn't so black and white and ends up championing balance. Personally, I like the redemption arc and his realization that people should be given a chance to choose, but at the same time provided support when and where needed. I think this likely leads to the paradise he and Robin have always dreamt of, one where everyone is happy. It's idealistic, but Welt himself says that Sunday has immense willpower and is likely able to succeed through sheer will alone. Whether or not he actually reaches this point is really up to him. It'll be a long time before we see Sunday reach such heights of leadership again, as for now, he remains a wanted fugitive. But who knows, with his time spent with the Trailblazers, perhaps he can redeem himself and his reputation and can then return triumphantly to the family if he still wants to. Until then, we will just have to wait and see. With that, I'll end the video here. Do you think Sunday is on the path to redemption, or will he ultimately go down a darker path? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you had fun watching the video, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and as usual, have a nice day.